from the headquarters of Telesur English in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Videos have emerged showing a large number of Venezuelan citizens in Peru gather outside their embassy in Lima, asking to be taken home. The video we're about to show you shows the long line of Venezuelans outside of the diplomatic mission. They said they wanted to be included in the Venezuelan government's plan called Return to the Homeland. Many of them chanted, "We want to leave."
We want to go back fast. There are Venezuelans here that are in the streets without food. We want to go back as soon as possible. I have small kids. Yes, we made the mistake to come here, but we want to go back.
I was told that here you could get a job. But when I arrived, that didn't happen. If we don't have documents, we can't get jobs.
It is not like everyone thinks, that with 100 soles you can buy groceries for a whole month. I had to come here to experience this. And that is why we are here today, to apply for the Return to the Homeland plan that President Maduro announced. That is why we're all here. More than 400 people want to go back.
In Caracas, Venezuela's communications minister spoke of the xenophobia and the poverty that many Venezuelans are experiencing in Peru.
This is what was happening today at 10 o'clock in the morning at the Venezuelan embassy in Lima, capital of Peru. Desperate Venezuelans asking to be brought home. We have the video. This was happening just a few hours ago.
President Nicolás Maduro says that according to the government figures, 600,000 Venezuelans have migrated in the last 2 years. Maduro was providing an update on the progress of the economic recovery plan. He called on the people of Venezuela to defend the government's efforts to restore a balanced economy. He invited those who had left Venezuela to return home and said that at least 90% of those who emigrate leave with money in their hands, often after selling property. He also explained the new measures for recovery are being developed without foreign interference.
The economic recovery program was created in Venezuela. This program is made with national talent, with advice and support from valuable people from around the world. But these measures are not like those imposed in Argentina, which are being imposed by International Monetary Fund. These are shameful economic measures imposed by Mauricio Macri on the Argentinian people. These people of Argentina are in the streets fighting. Today we saw them in the streets after the nefarious intervention of Mauricio Macri, who will go down in history as one of the most evil and criminal persons who have existed in the recent economic and political history of Argentina.
And Venezuela's ambassador to the OAS has strongly rejected apparent threats against President Maduro by the U.S. representative to the organization. In an exclusive interview with Telesur, Samuel Moncada referred to comments by Carlos Trujillo, where he suggested that Maduro's life could be in danger if he traveled to the United Nations General Assembly in New York.
He threatened the integrity of President Maduro, who is the head of a state of a member of the UN, a state recognized throughout the world, including the US, with whom we have an embassy. He threatened his physical integrity when he said that he don't know exactly if he could be arrested or not, or that he could be in danger if he dared to go to the United States. That is a threat to the physical integrity of a head of a state. It is a threat to international law, and this is a context where the president has already suffered an attempt of assassination, threatening the peace of the nation and peace in the Americas.
Now to Argentina, where more austerity measures have been announced in an attempt to stabilize the troubled economy. President Mauricio Macri laid out the changes in a televised address. More than half of the government's ministries will be cut. Plus, there will be stiff taxes on exports to reduce budget deficits. This comes after last week's dramatic collapse of the currency.
I have made the decision to reduce the number of ministries to less than half of what we have now. Governments have different moments, and in each moment they require different teams.
And Finance Minister Nicolás Duhovne says the government wants to achieve fiscal balance by 2019. Duhovne will travel to Washington to meet the head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, on Tuesday. Let's remember that Argentina signed a $50 billion loan with the IMF. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Edgardo Esteban, brings us more.
President Mauricio Macri has announced new measures to face the economic crisis. The government will cut down on the number of ministries in less than half in order to stabilize public spending and reduce the deficit. However, this will lead to massive layoffs. In the agro-industry ministry, 560 workers have lost their jobs in the past 24 hours. He also announced a tax on exports as an emergency measure to balance the accounts of the state. He said these were the worst 5 months of his administration after the country's currency has crashed to record lows. Finance Minister Nicolás Duhovne also announced other policy changes. He also said he will travel to the United States to hold meetings with the IMF to renegotiate new economic agreements in relation with the $50 billion standby finance loan they got from the financial institution.
Edgardo Esteban from Buenos Aires. An investigation is underway into the causes of the fire that destroyed Brazil's National Museum on Sunday night. After firefighters put out the blaze, activists are now blaming the government of Michel Temer and its cuts to funding for culture. The police say the building lacked a sprinkler system and had suffered financial neglect. Brazil's culture minister says the blaze may have been caused by an electrical fault or by a hot air balloon landing on its roof.
I think it's essential that there be clarification about the causes of the fire, and at this time, the federal police are concentrated on that. We need to know exactly what happened and what caused this fire. After that, it will also be possible to clarify who is responsible and understand what exactly happened and who is responsible.
Museum curators have been the first to go through the ashes and collect the remains of the collection, so the artifacts wouldn't be confused with charred debris. The museum housed more than 20 million items, including Brazil's oldest human fossil and meteorites. The Education Ministry says the government will seek international help and spend $3.6 billion in rebuilding the collection.
I was in a rush to get in there because I knew how to recognize the meteorites. I knew where they were, so that I could try to recover some. They were brought out of the ashes like a real phoenix.
Coming up, more stories. We'll be back.
In South America and the Caribbean, we face challenges, looking for ways of contributing to solutions to the nations. With a uniting feeling, though before the attack of those imposing themselves, we defend an ideal of an inspiring struggle. We are together, preserving our traditions, integrated, being one South.
Welcome back. Bolivia's President Evo Morales and President of Peru Martín Vizcarra have met in the Bolivian city of Cobija. The two leaders met to discuss the construction of the bi-oceanic train and the cleaning of Lake Titicaca. With the summit, the two countries also expect to strengthen ties and cooperation in the development of the Amazon region. Our correspondent in Bolivia, Freddy Morales, has all the details.
The President of Bolivia, Evo Morales, and the President of Peru, Martín Vizcarra, have finished the 4 binational cabinet in the Bolivian city of Cobija. From the year 2015, this cabinet raises solutions to the problems of its extensive common border of about 1,200 kilometers. The ministers of both states also met during the weekend. The heads of states have reviewed previous agreements and also signed new ones. The project of a bioceanic train stood out. This train would join the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean with a corridor that will pass through Bolivia in an extension of almost 3,700 kilometers. It will demand almost $14 billion of investment. They also discussed security issues, integration, economic development, and environment. The two countries share Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake in the world.
Former Chilean President Michelle Bachelet has taken office as the new UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Bachelet says she will do everything possible to support victims and human rights defenders. In her first statement as High Commissioner, she called on Myanmar to free the 2 Reuters journalists who have spent months in jail. The outgoing Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto gave his final State of the Union address on Monday. Peña Nieto said that he's optimistic that Mexico will reach a 3-way deal with the United States and Canada on the North American Free Trade Agreement. Peña Nieto admitted his government had not been able to improve security for Mexicans. As he leaves office, Mexico continues to see inequality, cartel violence, high levels of violence against women, attacks on journalists, and rampant corruption.
In a complex scenario, after a long and arduous negotiation, we continue to promote a trilateral agreement, because we are convinced of the importance of Canada remaining as a commercial partner within the treaty. North America is more successful when it stays together. It's better when each country contributes its strengths to make this the most attractive and competitive region in the world.
Residents from a town in El Salvador have set their streets on fire to celebrate the annual Fireball Festival. Participants pelted each other with rags drenched in gasoline rolled into tight flaming balls. The festival commemorates a volcanic eruption that occurred in 1658. It is said that the hot lava that flowed from the volcano was actually the local patron, Saint Jerome, fighting the devil with balls of fire. Now to Cuba, where about 2 million students are beginning the school year in more than 10,000 schools and 22 universities. During this new term, teachers and students will have an opportunity to participate in debates on proposed constitutional reforms in the country. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel spoke at an opening ceremony at the Rafael María de Mendive School. The building was re-inaugurated 150 years after Cuba's national hero, José Martí, studied at the institution.
That we require the joint effort of teachers, directors and staff. I think it's an inspiring beginning of classes, and it's one of the things we assure every year at the beginning of September, that there are schools and teachers for all Cuban children.
Let's hear from our correspondent Alien Fernandez with more details from Havana.
Hola, un gusto saludarte. Como tú adelantabas, comenzó el curso escolar en Cuba. Más de 2 millones de niños, adolescentes y jóvenes se están encontrando hoy con sus maestros en las aulas. Es algo verdaderamente
On this inaugural date in Havana, the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, said it was a jubilant day, since education is endured for all. Díaz-Canel has been working over the past day holding meetings alongside educational officials to address the issue due to the lack of teachers in some areas of the country and work on resigning the current structure with the teachers they have. Recently, the World Bank said Cuba was the country that spent the most on education, with close to the 13% of the GDP, and more than 1 million of its students have graduated from the university.
Labor Day was observed in the United States on Monday, with marches taking place all across the country. Thousands of Kaiser Permanente workers marched in the city of Oakland, protesting against plans for employee outsourcing at the healthcare giant. The company's planned cuts include outsourcing pharmacy warehouse workers and licensed vocational nurses in California. Workers said that the hospital has additional plans to fire workers.
We're here because Kaiser's wants to outsource a lot of jobs. My job in particular is in jeopardy. They want to outsource our warehouse, so we're here to let them know they're not going to do it without a fight.
The West Indian Day Parade has taken to the streets in Brooklyn, New York, as part of the Labor Day holiday. The annual carnival celebrates the culture of several Caribbean countries, from Trinidad to Jamaica. People fill the streets with costumes and soca music. New York City is home to the largest Caribbean population in the world. This, of course, outside of the Caribbean itself.
Today, when we march out of pride for the community you come from, march out of pride in this great city, but also march to send a message to Washington that we are a city proud of all the people who make up New York City, aren't we? We are proud to be a great city of immigrants, aren't we? We're not weaker because of immigration, we're stronger because of immigration.
We'll take one last short break, but stay with us.
We are always there tracking the news. We seek equality. We defend the truth. It's a hard job, but we are not alone. We count on a new ally.
Welcome back. Let's continue with our stories. We go now to Rwanda, where people have gone to the polls to elect members of parliament. More than 500 candidates from 5 political parties and 4 independent candidates are taking part in this election. The voting will take place over the next 3 days at 2,500 polling stations across the country. Political analysts say the ruling Rwandan Patriotic Front will take the majority of the seats. At least 48 security forces members in Nigeria have been killed after Boko Haram militants stormed a village near the border with Nigeria. The armed group stole weapons and military equipment before they were driven out of the base by the army. Since 2009, Boko Haram has killed 20,000 people and has forced the displacement of some 2.4 million people. Delegates at the China-Africa Cooperation Summit have made a call to strengthen relations. Our correspondent Isaura Diaz was there and brings us all the details.
During the China-Africa Cooperation Summit, President Xi Jinping has announced 8 measures the Asian giant will undertake over the next 3 years to provide $60 billion in financing to strengthen the relationship with the African continent. Among the measures are industrial development, improving infrastructure, increased imports of African products, reinforce cultural exchange, and safeguard peace and health in the continent. Xi Jinping emphasized that bilateral relations must be developed under South-South cooperation strategies and are based on mutual respect. No preconditions and no selfish or political-minded interests. The president also promoted synergy within the strategies and aligning the goals of the Agenda 2063 of the African Union with those of the Belt and Road Initiative. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa praised the achievements of the Chinese-African cooperation over the past 18 years and criticized comments made by some nations that said these bilateral relations are a new form of colonialism. Nonetheless, President Ramaphosa welcomed the announcement by President Xi Jinping and showed his support for the Belt and Road Initiative, which could provide more export options for the continent, since most of the current exports are for raw material only. The summit will run until Tuesday.
At least 8 people have been killed in an explosion at a munitions factory near Cape Town in South Africa. The fire at the Rheinmetall Denel munition depot has been contained, but the emergency services have been searching the building for any injured people. The cause of the blast is not known yet. According to eyewitnesses, the explosion was so strong that it shook nearby houses. Yemen's Minister of Legal Affairs has accused the United States of blocking a war crimes investigation into the Dahyan bombing. A Saudi-led airstrike hit a bus full of children in Dahyan, in northern Yemen. 51 people, including 40 children, lost their lives. The UN has called for an independent investigation into this incident.
We say that the crimes of aggression and the misinterpretation of the countries who support aggression, led by the United States of America, are due to the failure of the aggression to break the will of the Yemeni people and the steadfastness of its army and its popular committees in all fields of confrontation. We, in the Republic of Yemen, recognize that it is possible for the Security Council to adopt a resolution to refer war criminals to the International Criminal Court. We also recognize the difficulty of adopting a decision by the Council to form an international commission of inquiry because of the U.S. role in the aggression against our country.
At least 400 prisoners have escaped from a prison in the Libyan capital, Tripoli. The inmates forced open the doors of the Ain Sara prison, outnumbering the guards. The prisoners were reportedly terrified by heavy fighting that was taking place around them. The UN-backed Libyan government has declared a state of emergency in the capital. September 2nd marked 49 years since the death of Vietnam's revolutionary politician and poet Ho Chi Minh. Known as Uncle Ho, he fought to defeat the colonialist presence of both France and the United States.
A Marxist by education and conviction, the leader of Vietnam's independence movement and founder of its Communist Party, Ho Chi Minh, was born on May 19, 1890, in the An Anh region of central Vietnam. In 1917, he entered politics by joining the French Socialist Party, becoming involved in the activities of the Communist International. Uncle Ho, as he became known worldwide, educated himself by reading Lenin and studying the recent Russian Revolution. In 1924, during a trip to China, he organized the Revolutionary Youth and called for an anti-colonial revolution in Indochina. In 1930, he founded the Indo-Chinese Communist Party. In 1945, Ho Chi Minh created and led the Front for the Liberation of Vietnam in order to fight against foreign occupation. That same year, he declared the independence of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. With the defeat of the French military in 1954, Ho Chi Minh is proclaimed president of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. From there, he went on to fight against invading U.S. troops who were trying to overthrow his government, provoking the Vietnam War. Despite their huge firepower, the U.S. troops were defeated by an army that used a strategy of people's war for national salvation, freedom, sovereignty, and reunification. This revolutionary independence leader died in September 1969 at the age of 79. In his honor, and after the fall of the South Vietnam in 1975, Saigon was renamed Ho Chi Minh City. Ho Chi Minh's premise was always the same: a single Vietnam, the union of a nation.
And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. But as you know, this and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. Here you can find much more information on everything that we've discussed today. And you can also join us on social media. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.